Thank you. We just got a brand new bike from Rawrr, which I believe has not been released yet. The box says it's a Mantis Mini, but this one's been cranked up to 72 volts. Let's go check out what's inside. This is the brand new Rawrr Mantis R, which is supposed to be the more powerful version of the previous Mantis Mini. Rawrr also just launched another version of this bike called the R17, which is the same thing, but it's got a 14-inch rear and 17-inch front wheel set, while the Rawrr Mantis R comes with a 12-inch rear, 14-inch front wheel, like a standard pit bike. And here's everything that came in the package with the bike. Front fender, 14-inch front wheel with a 203 millimeter disc brake, which is a pretty good size for a bike this small. Toolbox, 72 volt charger, 84 volt max, 6 amp. Front axle with the spacers, front number plate mount, handlebar risers, quick start guide, and of course the front number plate. I also received another big box from Rawrr with an upgrade that we're going to be installing on this bike, but we'll go over that later in the video. For now, let's put this bike together. I find it easiest to put the bike together on the platform that it came with and just take all the sides off. And to do that, you just got to pry these tabs open. Oh my God. Yes, I did cut myself. So I'm just going to undo all the tabs and take all the sides off real quick. So the orientation goes number plate bracket, then the handlebar risers, and then the handlebar mount. And then for the front plate, the bottom two holes just go into the two tabs on top of the fender, and then the top is secured by one bolt for the bracket. What's interesting is there's this one plug that is not connected to anything. It's labeled beam. So I'm assuming you have the option to purchase a headlight at a later time. This would probably be easier to do with two people, but it's like 11 at night and I'm not gonna wake my wife up right now. Especially since she probably doesn't even know that this bike is here. So you'll notice that the axle came with two different size spacers. The longer spacer goes on the side where the brake rotor is, and then the shorter one goes on the opposite. You know what, I'm gonna put something a little bit bigger under the bike because I need to get more height. I gotta say, one of my favorite things so far about this bike is how easy it was to put together. Two people could probably assemble it in maybe 20 minutes. Obviously, it took a lot longer because I was filming throughout all of it. But the bike got shipped with 50% battery, so I'm gonna let it charge overnight, and then we'll go over all the features and take it out for its first ride. First thing I notice about the Mantis R is it's noticeably smaller than the other pit bikes on the market that comes with a 14-inch front and 12-inch rear wheel set. I'm not just talking about the size of the frame, but the seat height and the overall wheelbase. It just seems noticeably shorter than the ETM RTR by Electron Co. or even the Tudio. Though it's definitely bigger than a stock Razor MX 650 or SX 500. What's unique about this bike is it's designed for your kid to get into riding and have this bike grow with them as they get more experienced. As you'll notice back here in the swing arm wheel well area, there is a lot of room for you to put a larger wheel or maybe even a bigger tire. So you can probably put your young kid on this and leave it on the lowest power mode. Since this is a 72 volt bike, I'm expecting it to have a lot of torque and power overall. But there are 3 different power levels. You can start them off on the first power level, and as they get older, more experienced, taller, you can put the bigger wheel set on and put it on the higher power mode, which would be a perfect upgrade for them. Almost like it came with an extended swing arm from the factory. So what I've actually been super curious about is the motor. It says 72 volt, 2000 watts. So this is not just the factory 48 volt Mini that's been overvolted. This is a completely different setup. Frame design overall looks just like the Rawrr Mantis X, though I definitely like that the plastics are a more satin finish, which makes it more scratch resistant, which is gonna be perfect for a kid. You know what, let's take the seat off and get a closer look at the battery that it came with. Since I wasn't actually given too much information about this bike, as of today, I'm filming on March 8th. This bike's not on their website yet, so I'm not able to look up any specs. So I'm pretty much learning with you guys. So you put the key in the lock on the side of the frame here, just like a Rawrr Mantis X. And you pull the seat back, and that's how you access the battery. It's got a breaker over here, just like a Sur-Ron. Let's unplug this. Set that aside. Pretty easy to access the battery. 21700 cells, 20S, 1400 watt hours. So 72 volt, 20 amp hour, which I guess is a pretty standard size for this size pit bike. Battery gauge over there. You can either charge the battery on the bike or off the bike. Not too much going on over here. You just see the phase wires leading to the controller, which is mounted on the front where it should be. We're not going to be modifying this bike since it's actually going to be for my godson Milo. He just doesn't know it yet. What I would have liked to see is more space in the frame for a future larger battery upgrade, since that was a bigger gripe of mine with the Rawrr Mantis X, that I really want to throw a larger battery on. But if you have a second 72 volt 20 amp hour battery and you're at the track and you need to keep going, I guess you could hot swap the batteries pretty quickly. To turn the bike on, you actually don't need a key. You just hold the power button down for 3 seconds. So your screen turns on, and you put this start button on. And as long as the kickstand is up, you should be able to go. But if you're having an issue when you twist your throttle and doesn't do anything and has an error code over here, that actually means that the breaker's turned off. The bike would just seem like it's on because the controller holds a little bit of charge on there. Take the seat off and turn the breaker on. I just wanted to include this information because I was pretty confused at first when I got this bike and I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't turn on. Let's try that again. On, and now the throttle works. Hopefully that's helpful to somebody who might be having an issue out there. Well, first thing I noticed hopping on this thing is the suspension is super soft. Then again, this bike is made for kids. I actually got this for my 9-year-old godson. Just to give you some perspective though, I'm 180 pounds. I'm a pretty tiny dude, and just sitting on it, it squats pretty easily. So this might not be a great option for a full-size adult to get as a pit bike to mess around with without upgrading the rear shock to something with a higher spring rate. Now the front suspension is pretty soft as well, but not as noticeable as the rear. Then again, this bike is probably meant for somebody less than 140 pounds. They did put a quality shock on there though. This is from KKE, just like the ones that they use on their bigger bikes. The rebound is adjustable, and I'm also going to be adding some preload to it just to tighten up the spring a little bit and make it a little bit more appropriate for my rider weight. So to give you a quick visual on what the rebound adjustment actually does, we're going to put on the fastest setting. As you can see, the suspension springs back pretty quickly. If you put it in the absolute slowest setting, it slows down the reaction time by quite a lot. I'm actually going to start off with 3 clicks from the slowest setting. I think that's going to be a good starting point for me. I'm going to be running a GPS speedometer app just to get an idea how accurate the speedometer is on the display. I also want to know what the top speed is on the fastest mode. The brakes work pretty well, but even in the lowest power mode, this actually seems like a good amount of power for a kid. Let's turn that up to 2. Oh yeah, that is a noticeable amount of torque increase. All right, let's try it on the 3rd mode. went over 47. You know what, let's get on the main road and see what the top speed really is on this thing. All right, so the speedometer on the display is showing we hit a little over 46, 47 miles per hour. Let's see what the GPS actually says. So the GPS is only showing 40 miles per hour, so it seems to be about 6 miles per hour off. I'm gonna reset that and make sure that I'm getting an accurate reading there. Yeah, mode 3 is super torquey. I feel like the kid would have to be a pretty advanced rider to take advantage of that. Wow, this thing is pretty torquey. I wonder what kind of top speed this thing actually gets with the larger wheel set. I mean, overall, it rides pretty smooth. The suspension takes my weight okay after I adjusted the preload and the rebound settings. But this does seem like an aggressive amount of torque for a little kid, at least on the highest power setting. And the speedo calibration seems to be quite off, so I wonder if that is properly paired for the larger wheel set. Brakes work pretty nice though. I'm not gonna suck up too much battery since I'm actually gonna be taking this out to my buddy Justin's property, and we're gonna be riding around, testing this out on some light trails, along with the RTR, see how it compares. I also wanna make a couple small changes to the bike before we keep riding it. Another thing that I would like to see on this bike as an option, if you were going to do the larger wheel set, is a wider handlebar. So we did a little over 5 miles on that first pass, and I saw the battery voltage drop down 1 bar under load. So I wonder how accurate that actually is, because that would seem like pretty good range. All right, so it looks like the official top speed, at least with the smaller wheel set, is 41 miles per hour. That is like not even close to being the same size wheels as what's on there. Definitely explains why this bike had so much torque for how small it is. So the front brake rotor is still the same size, 203. Comes with a 68 tooth rear sprocket. Rear rotor is also a 203. Rear tire size is 3" by 14. Front tire size is 70/117. Let's throw these on the bike and see how it looks. The bigger wheel comes with a 68 tooth sprocket, and the original one had a 64 tooth. I guess if you wanted even more torque, you can put this sprocket on the smaller wheel and it would definitely pop wheelies all day, but you would have a pretty low top speed. Definitely gonna have to make some few adjustments on the chain tension adjustment bolts though. Since this is a bigger sprocket, it pulls the wheel forward just a little bit. So I'm gonna screw in those bolts as far as possible. Another thing to be mindful when you're swapping out the rear wheel is there is a small wheel spacer on the right side, which goes in between the brake caliper bracket and the swing arm. I'm not going to tighten the rear axle just yet. Just want it to be relatively snug. We still need the whole wheel assembly to be able to slide forward and back so we can get the chain tension adjusted correctly. Just want to make sure that the axle blocks are adjusted evenly on both sides so that the rear tire is tracking perfectly straight. It's about maybe about 1/2 inch of clearance all around the tire still. Unlike some of the other smaller bikes like the Rawrr, this one does not have a chain tensioner, so it's gotta have some slack like a traditional dirt bike. And just that one mod alone completely changes the overall look and appearance of the bike. Like it just went from a 50cc to maybe like a 110. Keep in mind the 17-inch wheel in the front would be the same size as like my Talaria XXX. And then the rear being a 14 with a really fat tire on there just changes the overall height and size of the bike. Both feet flat on the ground. The seat is right up against my inseam, so it definitely raised it like a solid 2 inches. Now, does it have enough power to move a big wheel set like this? Let's go test it out. All right, I'm gonna bust out my GPS speedometer app again, just to confirm how accurate the speedometer on the display is with the 17-inch wheels on. My buddy Justin over here is gonna be riding the Electro & Co ETM RTR. We're just gonna go in the street real quick, and then we're gonna do some trails. I'm gonna jump straight into 3. I cheated. So Speedo's still looking about the same, 46 miles per hour. We'll see what it actually measures on the GPS. I like how it rides though. It doesn't make the bike feel oddly heavy or anything. You like that thing? Oh wait, I forgot to check my top speed. I actually go 45 miles per hour in the Mantis R. Okay. The Speedo was showing 46, so it's a lot more accurate with the bigger wheels. So it seems like the speedometer is properly calibrated for the bigger wheel set. All right, let's see how this thing does off-road. Wow, this thing can hill climb. Oh, definitely bottoming out the front shock. finally wrecked it. So what do I think about Rawr's new Mantis R? I think this is the perfect bike for your younger kid to get into riding and have one bike that'll grow with them, meaning as they get a little bit taller, you can throw the larger wheel set on, and as they get a little bit more experience with riding, you can turn the power up, which is a lot more convenient than purchasing two separate bikes as your kid gets a little bit older. But keep in mind that this bike is meant for smaller and lighter riders. If you're a big kid like me at 180 pounds, you're definitely gonna bottom out the fork, which I did multiple times on the trails. Just the frame dimensions have the pegs pretty close up to the seat, so you will feel a little bit cramped as an adult riding on this bike. So I wouldn't really recommend it for anybody over 150 pounds or over 5'2". The brakes feel solid, plenty of stopping power for a bike this size. I would have liked to see a little bit more suspension adjustment though, especially for the front, but you can only ask for so much for a price point of $25.99, which I think is a bargain considering how much performance you're getting out of this bike. Right out of the box, the bike goes over 45 miles an hour, which I don't think your kid will get tired of very quickly. And the price point also makes a lot more sense to me than the original 48-volt Mantis Mini at $24.99. To me, I always thought that that was kind of odd, being only $500 away from the 72-volt Mantis X. But for this to only be $100 more and being 72 volts with a lot more options for upgrades in the future, I think this is an absolute steal. If you are interested in getting more information on this bike, I'll have a link to their new listing in the description below. I am planning on doing a little bit more testing with the Rawrr Mantis R before we throw on the smaller wheel set and hand it over to my godson Milo. So make sure you stay tuned for the next video. If you found this video helpful in any way, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you like this kind of content, want to keep up with some of my projects and some of my bike reviews, consider subscribing to this channel and turn your bell notification on. But this is going to be it for today. Thank you for watching.